Welcome to Mixtape Videos. We recently shared our rankings of the top 10 greatest players in NBA history. In addition to this, we decided to also rank the greatest players by position. Today, we're ranking the top 10 greatest point guards in NBA history. Make sure you watch to the end of this video to see how you can be a part of our next viewer-ranked video. Now, before we start, we're going to point out that there are a few players that you won't see on this list: Oscar Robertson, Jerry West, and Allen Iverson. That's because we're listing them as shooting guards. Just a few notes on the criteria we used for these rankings. As you know, we're big on numbers and advanced stats and analytics. So we looked at essential stats like assists, steals, and points, as well as a player's ranking in assist percentage, PER, and win shares, just to name a few. To keep things balanced, we also took into consideration their individual achievements, playoff performances, and any other pertinent accolades. Okay, so now that that's all out of the way, let's get started. Number 10, Walt Frazier. Walt, or Clyde Frazier, set many franchise records while playing for the New York Knicks. While many of them were eventually broken, he still holds the franchise record for the most career assists with 4,791. While with the Knicks, he won 2 championships and won All-Star MVP in 1975. He made the NBA All-Defensive Team 7 times and the All-NBA First Team 4 times. In the 1970 NBA Finals, while matched up against greats like Jerry West and Wilt Chamberlain, Walt scored 36 points, dished out 19 assists, and had 5 steals to seal a championship for the Knicks. It's hard to say what Frazier is known more for, his stellar defense or his stylish attire. Either way, teammate Willis Reed put it best when he said, "It's Clyde's ball, he just lets us play with it once in a while." Number 9, Gary Payton. Payton played for several franchises, including the Miami Heat, where he won an NBA championship as part of his farewell tour, but he is most known for his time with the Seattle Supersonics, where he earned the nickname The Glove for his inescapable defense. In fact, he's the only point guard to win Defensive Player of the Year and was selected to the NBA All-Defensive First Team 9 times, a record he shares only with Michael Jordan, Kevin Garnett, and Kobe Bryant. Pretty elite company. Gary Payton is number 4 all-time in total steals and 20th all-time in steals per game. But Payton wasn't just an elite defender, he's also 8th all-time in total assists. He was a complete point guard, able to score, defend, and grab rebounds. Number 8, Kevin Johnson. Kevin Johnson is always held in high esteem by NBA fans, but he's even more amazing to talk about when you look at some of his achievements. He is 6th all-time in assists per game for the regular season and the playoffs, 9th all-time in assist percentage, 8th all-time in assist percentage for the playoffs, and 11th all-time in offensive rating. In just his second season in the NBA, Johnson averaged over 20 points and 12 assists. That same year in the playoffs, he averaged nearly 21 points and 11 assists while shooting almost 50% from the floor. By the way, Magic Johnson and Isaiah Thomas are the only other players to average at least 20 points and 12 assists, and Kevin Johnson did it in his second year in the league. He averaged at least 20 points and 10 assists for the next 3 seasons, joining Oscar Robertson and Isaiah Thomas as the only players to do that for 3 consecutive seasons. He never won a championship, but he had several remarkable player performances, outplaying Magic Johnson, beating John Stockton, and of course, dunking on Hakeem Olajuwon while on his way to scoring 38 points. Number 7, Bob Cousy. Now it's time to go real old school. Bob Cousy was ahead of his time, or maybe he was just the beginning of everything and everyone is just copying him. Cousy was Magic before Magic Johnson. His flashy passes were something no one had really seen before. Aside from winning 6 NBA championships, he also won League MVP in 1957. He's 15th all-time in total assists, 19th all-time in assists per game for the regular season, and 9th all-time in assists per game in the playoffs. He actually led the league in assists for 8 consecutive seasons. With an attitude that matched his game, Cousy was not just a fan favorite. He was considered by many to be the greatest basketball player ever, at least up until that point. He set the tone for future players like Magic Johnson and Steve Nash. He had excellent court vision and amazing ball handling and passing skills. His behind-the-back dribbling moves may not seem flashy, but it got the ball rolling, so to speak, in the direction of creativity and showmanship. Number 6. Chris Paul. There was a time when Chris Paul was on his way to becoming the greatest point guard of all time. But after 10 seasons in the league without making it past even the second round of the playoffs with worthy teams around him, he's starting to slide in the minds of some NBA fans, and rightfully so. But he's still done plenty through his career to earn this spot. He's 3rd all-time in assists per game, 3rd all-time in steals per game, 2nd all-time in assist percentage, 6th all-time in PER, and has the highest offensive rating ever. In the playoffs, he's top 10 in PER, assists per game, assist percentage, and offensive rating. That's incredible. His short playoff runs are definitely a black mark on his career, but he's still one of the greatest point guards of all time. Number 5. Jason Kidd. Jason Kidd had a long and illustrious career. After 21 seasons, he finished 2nd in total assists, 2nd in total steals, and 7th in assists per game. His size made him an excellent all-around player. He could score, pass, rebound, and defend. In fact, he's the only player in NBA history with at least 15,000 points, 10,000 assists, and 7,000 rebounds. He's also 3rd all-time in triple-doubles. Despite having a reputation for being a terrible jump shooter, he's actually 5th all-time in three-pointers made. His defense and smart play helped win him a championship with the Dallas Mavericks in 2011. Before that, he made back-to-back finals appearances with teams featuring Richard Jefferson, Kenyon Martin, and Keith Van Horn. Number 4. Isiah Thomas. Known as the point guard that led the Bad Boy Pistons to back-to-back championships, Isiah Thomas was part of some of the most memorable playoff moments ever. His battles against the Celtics, Knicks, and Lakers made for great TV and solidified his reputation as an elite player who could score, pass, and defend. Any team that beats Jordan has to be great, right? He won 2 rings with the Detroit Pistons and won Finals MVP for his efforts in the 1990 playoffs. He's often known for his gritty performances, toughness, and style, and the numbers back up his elite reputation. He's 7th all-time in total assists. Not bad for a guy that had a relatively short career. He's also 5th all-time in assists per game in the regular season and 7th all-time in assists per game in the playoffs. On top of that, he's top 20 all-time in steals and assist percentage. He even set the record for the highest assist percentage in league history at 13.9 in the 84-85 season. That record was later broken by John Stockton. After several injuries, Isiah Thomas retired at only 32 years old. What more could he have done if he had stayed healthy? It's hard to say, but he still earned a high spot in history. Number 3. Steve Nash. For the younger generation, Steve Nash is probably the greatest point guard we actually got to watch. We'll just ignore his 2 years with the Lakers. After growing as a player with the Dallas Mavericks, Nash had his best years with the Phoenix Suns, perfectly orchestrating their high-octane offense with Amar'e Stoudemire, Joe Johnson, and Shawn Marion. It's there that he won 2 MVP awards, beating out Shaquille O'Neal, and becoming just the 3rd point guard ever to win the award and the 2nd to win it multiple times, along with Magic Johnson. Steve Nash is 3rd all-time in total assists, 10th in assists per game, 3rd in assist percentage, and 10th all-time in offensive rating. Basically, he was one of the greatest passers of all time. However, he was also a very underrated shooter. He's actually 10th all-time in three-point shooting percentage and had 4 50-40-90 seasons. He and Larry Bird are the only players to do that more than once, and even Larry Bird only did it twice. What could Nash and Dirk have accomplished if they had stayed together? Probably multiple rings, but it's hard to say. Number 2. John Stockton. We all think we know how great John Stockton was, but chances are he's even better than you think. Just listen to some of his accomplishments. He's number 1 all-time in total assists, a record he holds by a margin of more than 3,000. Number 1 in total steals, number 2 in assists per game for the regular season and the playoffs, number 1 in assist percentage for the regular season and the playoffs, and number 4 in offensive rating. He holds the record for assists per game average over one season at 14.5, led the league in assists for 9 seasons, a record, and had 5 of the top 6 assist seasons in NBA history. He's known for his offense and passing, and rightfully so, but he wasn't a bad defender either, as highlighted by his being number 1 in total steals and number 7 in steals per game. He was also selected to the NBA All-Defensive Second Team 5 times and was known to be one of the toughest players in the league. The Jazz never missed the playoffs during Stockton's career, and they reached the Western Conference Finals 5 times in a 7-year span. We could go on with these stats. The point is that Stockton owned the court. He was the quintessential point guard and set records that will probably never be beat. He was never able to beat Jordan and win a ring, and surprisingly, he never won MVP, but he's still easily one of the greatest point guards of all time. Number 1, Magic Johnson. You could probably already guess that we were going to put Magic at number 1 since he's the only point guard that showed up on our top 10 greatest players of all time list, and with good reason. Of the 15 point guard related stats and analytics we looked at, as mentioned in the outset, Magic is top 20 in 13 of them and top 10 in 8. On top of that, he won 5 championships, is a 3-time MVP and 2-time Finals MVP. He's number 5 all-time in total assists, number 1 in assists per game for the regular season and the playoffs, number 5 in assists percentage, number 3 in offensive rating, number 1 in offensive rating for the playoffs, and has the 5th most win shares for the playoffs in NBA history. Those achievements are amazing. Playing alongside other Hall of Fame players like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and James Worthy, Magic could have blended into the scenery and let his teammates run the show. Instead, he had the greatness to stand out among those players and established himself as the leader of the team. His size, mobility, and ball handling skills made him one of the most complete players ever. Proof of this is the fact that he's second only to Oscar Robertson in triple-doubles. So what do you think of our list? Is there someone we left out? Let us know in the comments or on Twitter at Mixtape Videos. Also, head over to our blog to submit your votes for the top 10 most overrated players in NBA history. There's a link in the description. Use the poll to submit your votes and then stay tuned for the new video.